All right, let's go ahead and get started. It is 10:03 on the dot. Sure my PowerPoint is working. Okay, there we are. Good morning, everyone. This is DHS's demonstration of the Disability Waiver Rate System cost reporting system. This meeting in particular is designed for our residential and unit-based providers, and in particular, mostly our corporate residential providers. However, anybody who attends this meeting will still probably get some value out of it if you've never seen the system before. Couple things as we get started. I'd like to first just introduce myself. I'm on camera and it should be working. And team, feel free to interrupt me and let me know if there's anything wrong with my sound, audio, or my video. My name is Dylan Adams. I am the data and compliance lead for the program integrity team. We oversee DWRS cost reporting. On this call, additionally, are Matt Grafsgaard, Colleen Crick, and Christina Hansa, each of whom will be involved in this demonstration later. And when they do their portions of the presentation, they can introduce themselves. If you are hard of seeing in any kind of way, I am a white blonde man in my 30s, and I am wearing a Minnesota Timberwolves sweatshirt. Because I am so excited about USA basketball right now, and I like that Anthony Edwards is in the games. Okay, so let's also go over a couple of other announcements. We have a Q&A function within this WebEx presentation. So what that means is if you have any questions whatsoever about cost reporting as we go through this initial PowerPoint and then through the demonstration of the system itself, please throw your questions in there. We'll have somebody responding pretty quickly. And if we need to do further research on those questions, we'll also provide information for you to follow up with us later. Another thing to remind you all is to log into the system as soon as possible if you have not done so already. It is currently August 6th. The deadline for cost reports for remaining in compliance is August 31st. So you have less than a month to go. Highly recommend that you get started with this as soon as possible because as with any kind of financial reporting, it can get complicated. So better to start early. This meeting is going to be recorded and we'll save it to our training archive. So if you later want to reference anything that we talk about today, just know that this will be accessible later. And if you want to share it with any of your peers, you could probably do so as well via that archive site. Just to kind of give an overview of this portion, I'm going to talk for about 20 minutes on the kind of background of cost reporting and give you a brief history. We'll go into what cost reporting is and is not, how one can do DWRS cost reporting successfully. And then finally, once I'm done talking, we'll have our team show you the actual system itself and kind of give you some examples that should hopefully make things a little bit easier as you go through the cost reports yourselves. Okay. And again, we do encourage people to email us. I've already mentioned the Q&A function and the signing into the cost reporting platform, but at the bottom of this announcement slide is our email address. Please email us any and all questions you have about cost reporting. Our team is pretty small. We have 3 full-time staff working on cost reporting, and every year we have about 500 providers. And this year we'll explain a little bit more, but we're implementing some new parts of this program. Needless to say, we're pretty busy, so please give us at least 3 business days to respond, especially this month as we kind of approach the deadline. We are usually much more responsive than that and should have a response to you same day, as long as it's within normal business hours. But just in case, give us at least 3 days before following up with us. Again, our email address is dhs.costreport@state.mn.us. And we'll put that in the chat probably later as well. So let's go through a brief history of cost reporting. You probably don't really need to know much about this. just that cost reporting has been in the works for a number of years. The legislature passed the underlying legislation to start the program in 2017. We then spent a few years developing that with providers and other members of the public. We then also went through a pretty robust testing and building process for this system. We had intended to go live with DWRS Cost Reporting in 2020. As you may be aware, some other events happened that year. And because of that, we all felt that it was best to move cost reporting to beginning in 2021. And that's when we kicked off the program itself. Another important thing to note is that because cost reporting is it's a 5-year cycle, so all DWRS providers are expected to report their costs at least once during that 5-year cycle. The end of the 5-year cycle is next year, 2025. And so beginning in 2026, we'll have a new 5-year cycle of cost reporting begin. And so you may be required to report now, but if you are randomly selected in 2 years, you may then have to report again. So just kind of know about that. Other things to know is that we have upcoming reports to the legislature that our team needs to work on and present, I believe, next year. We will be sure to update all providers about our findings from the cost reporting program from its first few years as we kind of produce that and get it routed for approvals. So let's dive into what cost reporting is. So this is the reporting of your actual costs of providing services. We are asking all of our DWRS providers to report their costs for just the DWRS services that they provide. You can, of course, mention any costs that your business has, but we do ask that you specifically call out what is for providing DWRS services. And we can explain a little bit more about how to use the system's allocation functions to make that super clear. But just know that we're not talking about elderly waiver. We're not talking about PCA. We're talking solely about DWRS. Excuse me. We are collecting all this information as part of an effort to inform future rate frameworks or future rates and our frameworks themselves. We will send out our findings to the legislature, and we provide them with information as they request it. All this is just to make sure that we have a DWRS system that is, adequately paying all providers, but also not promoting fraud, waste, or abuse with excessive rates or anything like that. So we're trying to find that balance, and cost reporting is a part of that. So what cost reporting is not. This is not an effort to look into your personal business. It's not an effort to change your rate. This has nothing to do with an individual provider. Cost reporting is supposed to be used in aggregate. As I mentioned a little bit earlier, we collect data from about 500 providers per year. And we are supposed to kind of present our findings on these providers in aggregate. We're not exactly broadcasting anybody's information out there. And again, we also don't control anything that has to do with rates. The legislature passes all of the rates and the rate frameworks. So no automatic changes will occur based on whatever you submit. I will say, of course, that the findings that we have from the cost reporting program, we will share with the legislature and also as they request any information from us. But again, no automatic changes occur. This is just purely to inform the legislature about this program overall. I will explain this in a little bit, but there is an auditing component of cost reporting, but cost reporting is not an audit, like a formal audit of your business. The auditing component of cost reporting is purely looking at like your cost report and what you put into it. So if your cost report is audited, our DHS auditing team will reach out to your business, your authorized agent, and ask for you to provide the documentation that you use to submit your cost report. That is it. There's no other kind of looking into your business. It's purely just looking at how did you submit your cost report and how were you informed to do it. So what should you use to report? For those of you who don't have standard business finance record keeping practices, let this be a wake-up call that you really ought to do this. Most of the folks on this call are corporate residential providers or unit-based providers. You tend to be, as a group, a little bit more formal with your record keeping, which is great. For our family providers, they tend to be a little bit less business savvy and may not be using QuickBooks or any kind of regular financial accounting software or anything like that. So let this be your wake-up call that if you don't keep bookkeeping records, you really ought to. And that's not only just because of what we do in terms of collecting your financial information and for auditing cost reports. It's just a good idea in general because I think you're required by CMS to do it. And also your business could be audited at any time by the Department of Revenue or the IRS. And so it's just a great idea to keep bookkeeping records and you should use those for your cost report. Again, most of the folks on this call won't have this situation, but if you aren't keeping standard financial documentation, we recommend that you use credit card statements or bank statements to track these kinds of costs. We also recommend that you just start tracking those payments as soon as possible in general. If you aren't tracking your revenues either, we also recommend that you do that, not just relying on the minute system. And that's just in case the minute system like ever goes down or has some sort of error. It's just good business practice to keep track of your revenues in addition to your costs as well. So here's what you should include in your cost report. We are looking for your actual costs of providing services, and those are informed by the records that I mentioned earlier. We aren't looking for averages or framework values or, God bless them, a few providers every year always report their rates instead of their actual yearly revenues, or they will report an employee's hourly wage instead of their total yearly earnings. So be sure to actually include your costs. There are a couple different ways to do this, and I'm blanking on the exact terminology. You could do either, like realized costs, like what you actually spent money on, or you could do, I'm blanking on the terminology, but like if you are incurring a cost, if you are being invoiced for those services and you track costs that way, that is acceptable as well. Just be sure to be consistent in terms of how you do this kind of reporting. And if there's anything that you think might be confusing to us, we include a bunch of opportunities for you to include notes. There's a note function on every single page of the cost report, and you can put as much information in there as you want. We'll find it useful. Just don't hesitate to leave us one. So please only report the costs that you had. If you didn't have any costs in certain areas, there's no need to report them. No need to guess. Sometimes we have people throwing in like random $1 charges because it gets them through the page. Please don't do that. That makes our job harder. Okay, let's dive into a little bit more about what not to include in your report. This does need to be stressed a little bit. Please don't include any costs that are personal in nature. This is primarily meant for our family provider population, but it does not hurt to cover it with our unit-based population and anybody else as well. Please don't include anything about your personal residence, such as your mortgage, your rent, HSA dues, any maintenance of your personal residence, any utilities or personal groceries, anything that could be related to just your personal use, it can't be included. There are some caveats here. For example, if part of your home is used solely for the provision of services, if you have questions about that, please reach out to us. But long story short, if there is any kind of personal benefit that you are getting from something, you should not be reporting that as a cost. Another thing to call out are there are certain programs that reimburse folks for certain things. So, and again, this is a family provider example, and I'm sorry I keep harping on the family providers, but there are like grants that you could get for modifying your home to make it more accessible for somebody living there. So you wouldn't report the cost for doing home modifications because it's a personal residence, and also because those modifications likely would be paid by a grant or outside thing. So if you are being reimbursed for that, you should not be reporting it as a cost. If another form of insurance is covering it, you should not be reporting it as a cost in this report. Now, real quick here, let's talk about the schedule. Again, the main point here is that at the end of the month is our reporting deadline. This makes people nervous, and that's understandable. That being said, there is a 90-day grace period if you miss that August 31st deadline. I am not encouraging you to miss that deadline. That being said, if you do miss the deadline, we're going to send you regular notices once per month that you have to finish your cost report. As of December 1st, if we still don't have your cost report submitted, we'll send out a notification of stop payment, and we will stop your payments. We are required to do that by state statute. There is no exception to that. There is no extension that we can offer. We need your cost report by that deadline. We'll warn you about it if you miss the deadline. And if we still don't have your report 90 days later, your payments will be stopped. So please keep that in mind. Okay, let's talk about the how of the cost reporting system. So if you're unsure if it's your year to report, your authorized agent would have been contacted back in March. We're supposed to reach out to all providers by March 31st of every year. This year we sent out emails a little bit early, so you probably have received an email on March 27th and then again on March 29th. That was just an accident. If you have any questions about your login information, please reach out to us. I think the initial email we sent out on March 27th had some incorrect information for the cost reporting logins, but we then clarified that on March 29th. Again, if you have any issues logging in, please reach out to us. Please note, though, that we send out all communications via email to the authorized agent on file. If you're not sure who that authorized agent is, you should probably reach out to us pretty quick. Again, we have our email in this presentation. It's dhs.costreport@state.mn.us. Whenever you reach out to us, please include information like your name, your business's NPI, and your organization's name. So again, your login information is going to be from that initial email. We, I think, have a system limitation in which passwords do reset after a certain amount of time. So if you try that temporary password and it doesn't work, that just means we have to reset your password. It's a really quick fix for us. We have no problem doing it. Just again, can't stress it enough. If you're having any trouble whatsoever getting access to the system, please reach out to us. Okay, so let's dive into a little bit more about how to kind of just do the cost report itself. Of course, we're going to go through every single page in this demonstration. There are 10 pages in the report. We're going to call out which parts of each page are going to be most relevant to you as corporate residential providers and unit-based providers. But just kind of a basic rule that we recommend is that you enter the cost simply enough, and then you allocate it to the cost area that is relevant to you. So if you are a residential service provider, anything that is involved with the provision of residential services, you'd allocate your costs and your staff time and whatnot to that. And then any kind of like administration or other type of service that is kind of linked to that, you would allocate those differently. And I'll explain that a little bit more in just a moment. So again, cost allocations, that's how we describe like kind of splitting costs for their particular area. You don't have to necessarily split a cost by allocations, and it might be helpful to see a visual, which again, I'll show you in just a moment. If you're only providing one type of services, all allocations should just be in that single category. So for example, if you're only a corporate residential provider, any of your direct service costs can just be allocated to residential services. Another thing to note is that there can be many different ways to allocate your costs. Some folks do it based on the revenue that they get. So if they're providing multiple services and they do, like, say, residential and unit-based, and 90% of their revenue comes from residential, they might allocate 90% of their costs to residential services. So that's one way you could do it. Other folks track their time really minutely. You could use that as your kind of way of allocating your costs. There are, again, infinite ways of kind of doing this. Just depends on your business. Just be sure to put in a note about your allocation methodology. There is a field on there's a field on each page that kind of asks for this information, and we recommend that you describe the allocations there. So again, this is a visual on the screen right now that shows how certain types of costs can be split. So for example, let's say for cost number 1 on this screen, the first line, let's say that we have a computer. That computer, we use it for obviously, taking notes and tracking the services that we provide to people receiving them. But maybe that computer is also used for specifically some programming for the individual receiving services. For example, if that person is doing like employment services and you need to use the computer to like work through a person's resume, or do an activity involving finding their work strengths or something like that. So in that case, for cost number 1, you might have a computer and it's applicable to, I know it says residential up there, but it might be applicable to unit-based services. And then because you also use it to take notes, part of that cost is allocated to the administrative section. That's the next column to the right. And if your business provides any other services and you use the computer as part of that, you could allocate the remaining costs to those other services. I'm going to skip cost number 2, but let's say like we have a pencil, just as an example, let's say we have a pencil. If we report the cost of that single pencil, chances are it's not really used as part of the direct provision of a service, but it's used for writing handwritten notes. So you might allocate the full cost of that pencil to the administrative category. So I hope those make sense. And again, we'll go through some actually super explicit examples in the demonstration itself. One thing to note about allocating costs, direct care allocations are a little bit more specific because we in the frameworks kind of break out direct care wages and costs. We recommend that you track your staff and how they spend their time. For larger businesses, you might have electronic verification, and you can use that as part of kind of like tracking your staff time. Otherwise, for businesses who are not currently tracking their staff time, we have a time tracking document on our website that can help you to kind of track your staff's time, of course. But you can do it, for example, like do it for like a week and find how the staff spends their time, and then you can kind of extrapolate from that week. So we recommend using this document just like kind of test out and kind of extrapolate what your staff are doing. And finally, don't forget to attribute time to non-billable work and program support if workers have that as part of their work time. Okay, so we are going to now show you the cost reporting system itself. And I am going to stop sharing my screen briefly so that my colleagues can begin the presentation. And I believe it's Colleen, are you going first?
Yes. Let me know if you have issues seeing my screen at all. I'm going to please share. All right. Well, hello, everyone. Thank you for joining. My name is Colleen. I use she, her pronouns. I am a white female with blue eyes, shorter brownish hair. I'm wearing a black shirt, and my background here is a virtual filter. It looks like sunshine through a window. I'm going to kick us off here. What you're seeing on my screen is the login page. So this would be, this link is not public, so this would have come from that initial email that your authorized agent would have received, again, like Dylan said, back in March on the 29th. So this is your login page. When you get to this page, you're going to enter your username and that temporary password that you received, or if you've already logged in, whatever password you have set. If you do not remember your password, you can click on this link here, forgot your password, and you can reset that password on your own. Or again, you can always email our team and we are more than happy to assist in resetting your password as well. One thing I want to point out with your login here, all authorized agents username is going to be admin dot followed by your email. Just an easy way to look up if you're using the correct user account. Those authorized agent accounts are going to say admin dot followed by your email. So I'm going to log in here to the system. You're going to be taken to the provider dashboard here. There's some general information up on the top, including links to our manual, as well as an offline Excel workbook. If you would like to use this to just kind of prepare some of your data ahead of entry, feel free to use that. And as you scroll down here, you will have three areas. One says reports not started, reports in progress, and reports submitted. You all are not going to see this many reports. This is my test environment. You're going to have one report that you need to do. So click on your report. I'm going to click on this one down here that I have created for our demonstration. You're going to be taken here into the first page of the actual report. So here you see the contact information page. Now I want to point out a few things with the system just to show you. On all of the pages, there will be this top section in light blue that describes the page that you're currently on. So it will have the title here, as well as a description. And then there will also be a really handy link to the page in our instruction manual specific to the page that you're working on. So if you have questions about this, this page, the contact information page, click on the link and you'll be taken to the instruction manual to walk you through this page. Very helpful. On the top here, you'll also have a navigate to button. If you need to jump around the report, you can click on there. However, if you scroll to the bottom of every page, you also have these navigation buttons, previous, save, save and next. I do recommend always using these buttons to navigate, the save and next specifically, just to ensure you don't lose any of your work that you've already entered. All right, so on the contact information page, this will be pre-filled with your authorized agent's information. So down here you can see it says Colleen Tester. This is in this example, authorized agent information that has already been pre-filled into the report. You do not have to add anything else to this page. However, if you have someone, for example, that's going to be assisting you in completing the report, you definitely can add someone else in here. So maybe my colleague here, Matt, is going to be helping me out. He is my company's accountant in this example, and he's going to help prepare the report for me as the authorized agent to submit. So I'm going to click in here that he is a cost report preparer. We'll just type in a little bit of information here. Minnesota. All right. And then I will hit create new contact. Now, when I create this, it will Well, we have an example he already has. So this is my test environment. You all should not have issues with this. But as you hit create new contact, that information here will populate. Matt now will be sent a similar email to what you had received initially with, hey, you have been, created an account for the cost reporting system. Here's your username, a temporary password for you to log into the system. You can also edit by clicking on the gray button, edit and view, and you can enable or disable the users as well. One thing to point out, only the authorized agent account is going to be able to finalize and submit the report. So you can add as many users to the system as you want to help prepare, but the authorized agent account is the only one that can finalize and submit. And again, that is the username admin dot followed by the email. All right, so I'm going to move on, again, using these navigation buttons at the bottom. Let's see, save and next to make sure that my information is saved. And I am on the provider information page now. So again, this blue section at the top describes the page that you're on. It also has a link to the instruction manual if you have questions about this page. And there is also, beginning here at the provider information page, this notes button. If there are any notes you would like to include in the report, anything at all that you want to let us know, click on this button, add a note. We can see these and read these, so feel free to leave us notes. All right, so provider information page, you're going to want to enter, I pre-filled some of this information, by the way, so just to help things move along. So you'll want to add in your business name, your FEIN number, how many annual unique recipients you serve. So again, how many people throughout the whole year do you serve? How many years in operation? What is your business structure? You can have a selection here. A cost report to and from, and then also your NPI numbers. Now to add an NPI number, you do need to click this dark blue button here, and you can enter any of your NPI numbers in here. So some organizations have multiple NPI numbers. You can type them all in here. Cost report to and from dates, I do just want to call out that you do need to be reporting on a full 12 months of data. So we have January 1st, 2023 through December 31st, 2023. I just want to point out, if I were to put January 1st, 2023 to January 1st, 2024, this would cause an error with the system because that is more than 12 months of data. So make sure your dates are correct here and aligned. And then also your information that you're reporting on cannot be older than 18 months. So to make things simple for most providers, they will just be reporting on the previous calendar year. So again, January 1st through December 31st, typically is what providers will be reporting on. All right, I'm going to move on. Again, hitting that save and next button, and we are on the revenues page. So again, revenues page in this blue section, there's the corresponding link in the instruction manual. I have a notes tab here, so I can add any notes that I would like our cost reporting team to see. Now on here, there is a program service type option. So this is where you're going to select the type of service that you're offering. So for our example here, let's say we are a residential services provider and that we are providing integrated community supports. So I'm going to find that corresponding service code in here. And these service codes are going to change based on the program service type you have listed. So if I were to select day services here, these options are going to correspond with day program services. If I select residential, these service codes are going to be residential service codes. So I'm going to select community, integrated community supports here. Annual service revenue. As you can see by scrolling over this little question mark, annual service revenue means the sum total of money that a provider received for the service, not the rate. So I want to know throughout the whole year, what is my service revenue? Now, these numbers are demonstration numbers, might not be accurate here. I'm going to put 200,000 in here. Annual units, we're going to say 350. How many annual recipients were served? I'm going to put 4. And if I scroll over this question mark, it gives me a little information about what that means. So again, the number of unique individuals who received the service throughout the year. And one other thing, don't add commas to the system. It doesn't like that. Just put in your numbers. All right, so now I have entered my data up here. I'm going to click Create New Revenue. As you can see, I already added some of this information, but I just wanted to show you how to enter this in. There's also this Edit and View button. If you need to make changes on anything, you can edit your information. Or if maybe you made a mistake, you can delete that information as well. The information is going to auto-calculate down here. It's going to summarize what you've entered up top. So you will see all of that here. Now, as you can see, I also have another program service type listed here just for the example. So let's say you're a unit-based services provider. You provide services without programming, for example, IHS services without training. So you can select these options and add in additional services and revenues for those. All right, so I'm going to look over, say this is all I have. I'm going to hit the Save and Next button here and move on to the next page. Which is the administrative and program support wages here. And I'm actually going to pass the baton here to my colleague, Matt.
All right, wonderful. Thank you, Colleen. Good morning, everyone. I'm going to be sharing my screen here. And please let me know if you can see that as well. All right. Well, again, good morning, everyone. My name is Matt Grafsgaard. I am a fellow member of the cost reporting team here at DHS. I am a white male sitting in front of a virtual background. I have a dark gray button-down shirt on. All right, and we will kick this off on the admin and program support salaries, benefits, and allocations page. I'm going to repeat some of what Colleen said again, just as like a friendly reminder. Again, there's a handy navigate bar at the top here. You can use that to transition between different pages, but again, we recommend using the save and next buttons at the bottom. There's a notes button you can use if there's any other information you feel might be pertinent or relevant that you'd like our team to know. The top blue section will give you general information about what the page is, what we're expecting to see on the page. And then, of course, there's the link to the instruction manual. So the affiliated manual page that aligns with the specific page you're reporting on, that link will always be right at the top here. To keep us moving, I have pre-filled some information here, but I am going to show you how to enter admin and program support salaries, benefits, and allocations on this page. Again, this is for administrative and program support salaries, wages only. So these are, think of these like the behind the scenes people. This is not your direct care staff. This is for the admin, maybe your accountants or your CEOs, that sort of thing. So the first question is, do you have any administrative and or program support salaries and wages to report for the employees and or contractors? Again, for the sake of this demo, we do have some. Keep in mind, if you're a smaller provider, you might not have admin support wages or separate admin support staff. You might do everything solo, and you might also be providing direct care. But for maybe some of the bigger businesses out there, you might have, again, the behind the scenes admin. So we're going to select yes here that we do have an admin support staff person. We're going to say they are an accountant. And then the position service type, again, once you select these, we feel like we've covered most of them too. IT, supervisor, human resources, housekeeping, janitorial. Again, what you could imagine are like the behind the scenes staff. So we're going to select finance and accounting. We're going to select one because we have one accountant here with a total salaries and wages of $60,000. Again, to repeat what Colleen said, we do not want commas in there. So just avoid adding commas. And I want to take a step back too. So if employees are going to be, staff that you pay payroll taxes and, you might offer them benefits, whereas a contractor typically will not receive benefits, or you might not withhold payroll taxes. So I wanted to make that differentiation between the employee and a contractor. Again, employees will be receiving payroll taxes, benefits, whereas contractors typically will just get a 1099 tax form at the end of the year. Okay, so once we've selected employee, we've entered our information here. We're going to create the admin salaries and wages button there, at which point in time it will show up down here. Let's see, did that not work? And again, and if there are any glitches or, just keep in mind, this is our test environment. So things might not work on this end, but they'll be working for you all on the external system you use. All right, so I'm not certain why that's not showing up, but either way, we'll click into benefits and payroll here to see if we can get that to work. And this was just working a few moments ago, so I apologize for the delay. Actually, let me try something else. And please forgive the delay here, everyone. Colleen, are you by chance able to proceed beyond this page?
Sure, I can share. Do you want to keep talking
Yeah.
and I'll just share my screen?
Yeah, that would be wonderful. Thank you, Colleen.
Of course. All right. Can you?
All right, wonderful.
this
Thank you
okay?
so much, Colleen. Yep, that's it. So as you can see, we have the total salaries entered there of $60,000. So then if we click into the benefits and payroll button there, which is the dark blue button, again, we have pre-filled some information onto this page. So once that benefits and payroll tab opens.
Well.
Yeah, maybe we're
this
just having a
isn't
wide
good. Let's try adding a new person here.
Yeah, that could work too. So yeah, we're adding an accountant with a position type of finance and accounting with total salaries and wage. Yep, for one with total salaries and wages of 60,000. Yeah, let's see if this will work now. This could be more of a widespread issue, I guess. Dylan, I don't know if you're maybe having the same issues. And again, to our audience members, we apologize for the delay. Again, this was just working this morning.
I was working
So again,
3 seconds ago. So.
Yeah. So again, keep in mind too, this is our internal test environment. So you on the external side.
I suspect that this might be, though this is the DWRS system, I think that there might be maintenance that's happening to the CFSS system that we just were notified about.
Oh, okay.
Which is unfortunate. Let's see if I can find some other images. And you just clicked that and it's not working.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's right.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, it looks like it might be a server issue. So we are getting a
Oh no.
So we can just kind of talk through at least some of these pages. So once you do add, your salaries line, there'll be an area where you can add in the specific payroll taxes and benefits, health insurance, dental insurance, retirement, things like that, Social Security, Medicare, withholdings, federal withholdings, state employment tax, the unemployment tax, things like that. Everything at the bottom that you're seeing there, the totals section, all of that will auto-populate based on the amounts you've entered. So again, we use $60,000 for the total salaries and wages. Once you add the benefits and payroll, that will add into the bottom total section, and then which will get you your total compensation. And then at the bottom there, you'll see the describe your methodologies section. So just kind of explaining how you came up with those numbers. So for example, 100% of the accountant's time is spent doing non-direct care work related to the DWRS services. So again, you will see that has a mandatory text box at the bottom. So again, you could use time tracking sheets if you track time cards, if you have some online timesheet software you use, whatever you use to track your staff's time, that will be entered at the bottom. And then we want to scroll up to just a little bit if we can. Oh, I guess it's not on that one, but there will be another allocation button. So you'll want to allocate that staff's time. So say, for example, using our accountant from this example, say they spend 100% of their time working on DWRS services, you'll want to allocate 100% of that time to DWRS services administration. Again, that's that behind the scenes work that they're doing. So then once we proceed beyond the admin and program support, then we'll move to the direct care page. All right, and the direct care page, you'll see this is very similar to the previous page. You're going to see the navigate button at the top. You'll see the notes button, the select staff type, all of that. What I will point out on the direct care staff and supervisor page, though, is that you will not see the yes or no button at the top. So if you remember on the previous page, I pointed out how it asks, do you have admin support staff to report, to kind of, report a wage for? You won't see that question on the direct care page because, having direct care staff is mandatory. If you don't have direct care staff, then you're probably not providing DWRS services. So the yes, no question will not be at the top here, but you'll see the layout to this page is very similar. There's going to be the select staff type where you can select employee or a contractor. You can enter the working job title. You can indicate if, whatever that, if it's direct care staff, something like that, or an ICS worker. You can enter all that information there. The next question asks about employees. Do they receive customized pay for deaf or hard of hearing? We'll just indicate no on there. The position type, again, you'll see the direct care supervisor, direct care worker, or licensed direct care worker. So we'll select direct care worker for that one. And I want to point out too on this wage page that this section that Colleen is on now, you can combine staff wages onto the same line. So if you have, say, 4 direct care staff and they're all doing the same work, you can combine their wages and hours worked onto the same line. So, you don't have to add a separate service line for every single employee. Feel free to combine them. And again, just throughout this demo, we're using very rounded numbers. We don't want to see rounded numbers on your end. Again, it might turn out that some of them might be rounded, to the nearest dollar or something, that's fine. But when we're seeing a lot of wages, or wages end in all zeros or things like that, that might raise some red flags for us. So we want you to enter the exact wages for the staff. So again, you can see Colleen entering the holiday pay, the sick time, bonuses, incentive, PTO, things like that. If they attended any trainings, all of that, you can see her entering on this line here. And I will point out that once you're on the bonus, once you get to the bonus incentive line, from there on down, you will not be able to enter hours. Okay, everything from PTO on up you can, but all those lower ones you will not be able to enter specific hours for. So Colleen has just entered all of the benefits here. You'll see everything will auto-calculate auto-calculate at the bottom. And then once you've verified all that's correct, you'll click the create direct care wages, at which point in time that will show up then lower in the screen, kind of between where you see that totals button, it will show up somewhere in there. So again, we apologize that we don't have the visual for this. We do have past recordings of this webinar recorded. So if you want to actually see what that works out when the system is working, you can always reference some of those past trainings. So again, at the bottom, similar to the previous page, once you have all the totals entered, they will auto-populate down there. So you have the salaries, the benefits, the total compensation, which again includes all of the salaries and benefits combined. And then again, you'll see that the methodology box at the bottom there, where you'll enter, how you came up with the numbers listed above. So if it's tracking time cards, if it's, time card software, whatever it is, you can just enter however you came up with the specific wage figures. All
And
right,
I'd just
so
like
then-
to point out, you can't see it, but there will be a blue button after you hit create direct care wages that says benefits and payroll, and that is where you enter the benefits and payroll taxes. And then there is a green button next to it that would say allocations, and that would be where you put forth the allocations for where the staff are allocating their time. So if it's 50-50 between doing administrative work and direct care work, if it's 100% of their time doing direct care work, that would be the green button that you see. Again, apologies, you can't see this information. Yeah, go ahead, Matt.
No, thank you for the call out, Colleen. So I appreciate that. Yep. We always want you to allocate, or actually it's mandatory to allocate your staff's time, like as Colleen was saying, if it's direct care, if it's, service administration, whatever it is. If allocations themselves can be kind of tricky. So if you're ever not certain, or if you want to maybe need some additional clarification, please feel free to email our team. We're more than happy to answer any questions you may have. Okay, so after the direct care staff wage pages, you get to this other benefits page. Again, it's going to look pretty similar to the other page. Navigate button, the notes button. This is kind of a lesser used page. So as you can see, it says this section of the cost report collects information about the costs of benefits offered by an organization that cannot be tied directly to individual employees. Organizations most often pay these types of benefits as an aggregate amount or single line item. So again, these are less common benefits. So things like maybe a magazine subscription for the office, or if you're, or if you offer like an employee assistance program, again, these benefits cannot be tied to an individual employee. So Colleen has selected yes here, just so you can kind of see what this page will look like, the total cost amount. This will show you, similar to the allocation buttons that Colleen was talking about, how you can allocate those costs to different sections, whether it's residential services, unit-based services, other disability waiver services, and you'll want that total allocation on the right to equal 100%. So then at the bottom, again, this will be if you select yes for other benefits, this will be a mandatory text box. So yes, a magazine subscription, again, employee assistance programs. Again, this is a lesser used page. But you might have them. But again, if you're ever not certain, just please feel free to email our team for additional clarification. All right, then following the other benefits page, that brings us to the client and programming support cost page. And thank you again, Colleen, for sharing your screen. It's still not working.
Hey, Matt and Colleen, can I share the Excel workbook real quick, just so folks can have a little bit more of a visual on allocations? So I'm just going to quickly take away the computer for you. And again, I apologize to the folks attending this that we can't show the full functionality of the system. We are trying to figure out why our IT friends decided to do an update while we were doing this. Okay. What I am showing on the screen right now is our Excel workbook. A version of this is available on our website. If you just Google DWRS Cost Reporting, it's our homepage. And then within like I believe it's the resources tab, there's an Excel workbook that you can just see right there. Something to note here. So if we take a look at that previous section, this would be kind of aligned with the direct care staff. Here is an example worker that I included. There are, I didn't put any exact costs or anything right now, but if I were to put in costs on the as part of their time and their all of that, they would show up here. So if I'm scrolling through this very long document, you can tell that there are lots of different kind of specific ways to allocate time for direct care staff. And if we're taking a look at unit-based staff, you can kind of see here that we break it down based on like behavior program analysts, behavior program professionals, for all the various employment services. Like we get specific into allocating their time, direct care staff time to specifically employment direct care provision. And in addition to that, there's also, if we continue to scroll through here for other kinds of direct care functionality, in like residential settings, we have listed out like RNs and LPNs, the kind of licensed direct care workers. And then finally, in addition to all of the kind of direct care provisions that these folks would have, we also have like the ability to allocate time to other direct care services, non-billable tasks, administration, that kind of stuff. So again, all of this is reflected in our system. This Excel workbook is purely just kind of for your edification or to track separately. We don't accept submissions of just the Excel workbook, but you can kind of use this as a guide. Unfortunately, our system is giving us trouble. So at least with this Excel workbook, you can see how kind of how very detailed we get with our breakdown of allocations. And I hope that helps for you all. All right. We are encountering, it sounds like, even more technical difficulties. I'm going to try to hop into the test environment, and the server is down. That's lovely. Okay. So here's how we're going to do this. I sincerely apologize. Our demonstration might have to be cut short because we cannot even get the system up and running now. What I'm going to do now, Matt and Colleen, I'm just going to share the Excel workbook document and then just kind of walk through that. I'm pretty familiar with this because I helped make it. So 1 second, I'm going to share my Excel workbook again. We'll just walk through this kind of quickly. Again,
Dylan,
we do have archive trainings that go through all of the pages themselves.
Is there any way to share the actual system? Do we have any way to do that?
I don't think so right now. We can't really share our production environment because it contains actual live data.
Yeah.
And our test environment is being updated as we speak. And it's now kicked us out. Okay. We left off at the other benefits page. Can you all see my Excel workbook, by the way?
Mm-hmm.
Perfect. Okay. We just described the other benefits page, which again, is probably pretty uncommon for you all. But if you do have any kinds of benefits that you want to report, you would report their costs on that page and then allocate them with the various categories that you kind of see up on the screen. Next up, we have client and programming support. These are the costs of items that are specifically used as part of the provision of services that are mostly unrelated to staff time. So for example, supplies and equipment, cost to access community services. We also have some mileage reimbursement for in-program transportation. Folks, if you have questions in particular about transportation, please feel free to add them to our chat. Transportation can get a little bit nuanced because sometimes it's included in the provision of services and sometimes it's not. On the client and programming support page, you report your mileage reimbursement costs that are directly related to the provision of the service. So like this is something that's in a person's service plan. That's that one. And then you'll have the ability to report other transportation costs elsewhere in this cost report. And I'll try to highlight what those are as we go through them. Real quick here, I'm putting myself on Do Not Disturb so that I get any more of those pings. Okay. So you can report client programming support costs. I will say one thing that I have noticed as I've been going through cost reports is that this page gets underreported in costs. So please do kind of pay attention to this page. Just gut reaction. I'm surprised by how few costs are typically reported on this page for providers. I am now moving through the Excel workbook past the day program facility costs and allocation pages. These two pages are only applicable to day providers, and because this demonstration is not focused on day providers, I'm going to just skip through it. There is a location where you can report your facility costs elsewhere, and I'll call that out in just a moment. Okay. On this page are all of your transportation costs that are not related to the direct provision of a service. So these are transportation costs that are related to providing a service, but they're not specifically called out in a person's service plan. So these might be out of program costs, but we do want to capture all of the transportation costs you do have because this is a hot topic in DWRS, and we want to inform the legislature about transportation costs that do occur so that they could potentially reflect those costs in future rates. I'm not going to spend a ton of time on this page because it is kind of pretty self-explanatory. We have financing, depreciation expenses, insurance, all of the kind of basic things that you would imagine related to transportation costs. We then give you the ability to allocate those costs to the relevant service bucket, as well as administration if you're using vehicles for administrative tasks. For example, moving supplies back and forth from a particular location or amongst particular locations. Our vehicles page.
Dylan, can I interrupt? Our system's back up.
Oh, perfect. I'm going to stop sharing. That was really fun. Colleen and Matt, would you mind sharing the system again? I'm glad I could stall for you guys.
Yeah, thank you, Dylan. I can't guarantee how long this system will stay back up. So again, if we lose it again, I want to sincerely apologize to those in the audience. We did leave off at the direct care wage pages. Again, you'll see here what Colleen was talking about, the benefits and payroll button, the allocation buttons. Once you click on benefits and payroll, you can allocate to, enter your amounts for health insurance, dental insurance, all those different things that you would think would be included as benefits and payroll, retirement, Social Security, Medicare. It auto-populates the total at the bottom. Once all those are entered, save and close, allocation buttons. Again, the total allocation has to equal 100%. So again, for our support staff, direct care worker, we're allocating 100% to unit-based services without programming for personal support staff. Total allocation at the bottom here. Save and close. Again, you can always edit, view, delete, whatever. If you need to revise anything or just delete a line altogether, again, you can combine same staff onto the same line. Totals will auto-populate here at the bottom. Again, methodology, something simple, like we track time cards. Once you've entered all of your staff lines and you've confirmed all the totals are correct, save and next. Move to other benefits, which we've already covered. Again, this is a lesser used page, but if you do by chance have one, again, like I said, magazines for the office, employee assistance programs, things that can't be attributed to an individual employee, those will go on this page. Again, just for the sake of this demonstration, we're going to leave this as no. If you're not certain if something can be counted as another benefit, please feel free to email our team. Save and next. Again, I can't guarantee how long the system is going to bear with us, or be with us. So I've pre-filled some information. So client programming support costs. This section of the cost report collects information about costs and allocations related to programming and support for people who receive services. Do not include costs on this section if they are general to a program or facility and cannot be connected directly to providing services to people. So again, notes button at the top, handy navigate button. The link to the manual will take you right to the client and programming support cost page. So do you have any client and programming support costs to report? We do. Supplies and equipment, we put $50, allocated 100% of that to DWRS residential services. Participation costs for staff, $500. Say your staff member takes someone receiving services to the museum, or maybe they takes them to an outing somewhere in the community. $500 for participation costs for staff, with 100% of that allocated to DWRS unit-based services without programming. Again, total allocations always have to equal 100%. Mileage reimbursement for in-program transportation. As Dylan was saying, transportation can get a little murky. If you're reporting mileage reimbursement for in-program transportation, in short, that means that the person receiving services has to be with that staff member. This isn't for mileage reimbursement if you're paying some of your admin staff to attend a conference out of town. That shouldn't be recorded on this page. What we want here is in-program transportation. Again, that essentially just means that the person receiving services is with the staff member. But again, we get a lot of questions about transportation. So if you still have questions about it, please feel free to email us. Total amounts for this page, again, auto-populate at the bottom, then your methodology. We track mileage with odometer and receipts. Again, something very simple like that. And I apologize, I'm going quickly. I just can't guarantee how long our system is going to be with us. Day program facility costs. Again, since we did not select day services on the revenues page, this day program facility costs, there'll be nothing to enter on this page. So if you do by chance have day services, whether they're unit-based or employment services, or whether you operate a day program, you will have the option to add information on this page. But being that that wasn't a revenue selected on this specific fake test report or cost report, nothing populates on this page. So we're going to skip over this one. Transportation costs. So this section of the cost report collects DWRS non-wage costs related to travel and transportation. This includes all transportation that would at least be at least partially attributed to DWRS services. Total allocations have to equal 100%. So, for example, if you have a van or something like that, or if you have, if staff are, if you have admin staff, things like that, you might have some costs to enter on this page. So vehicle insurance, again, if you have a van that you operate, you might have vehicle insurance. So we're going to allocate, 50% to residential services, 50% to unit-based services for a total allocation then of 100%. Vehicle registration, licensing and registration, similar allocations here. Fuel, vehicle repairs and maintenance. Again, we're having all very rounded numbers. So again, we want accurate, actual costs. We don't want rounded numbers. Again, for the sake of this demonstration, they're all very rounded, but we want actual costs here. The totals will auto-populate as they will kind of throughout the rest of the system. Mileage reimbursement, as I was saying before, on the transportation page, again, which we are on now, this is for mileage reimbursement here would be for maybe your back end kind of admin staff. This isn't for the direct care staff who are driving your program participants around. This is for admin staff. So we'll just say $100 maybe for them to go to a conference out of town. And you'll see that I've allocated 100% to services administration. I know this wording can be kind of confusing, but services administration is for the administrative kind of staff, the CEOs, the accountants, maybe the people working in the actual offices, not the direct care staff themselves. Okay, similar to previous pages, describe your methodology for allocating costs. Mileage reimbursements would be for admin staff being reimbursed for mileage to a work-related conference. Just something simple like that. Okay, save and next. Vehicle cost and usage. I have pre-filled a vehicle in here already, say that's the van that we're using. So do you have any leased or owned vehicles for your business to report? Your option is yes and no. You can enter the year, the make, the model, when it was acquired, when it was disposed, if that's applicable. If there's a lift equipped, estimated cost of modifications, say you had to add a lift to it, what that cost would be, primary county of service, and then total miles driven during the year. And then here is where you're going to allocate what percentage of that, the use of that van is used for your service delivery. So again, this part can get kind of confusing, but again, that's the amount of time this van is in use that is used for the delivery of services. Once you have all that information entered, you will create the vehicle usage where it will come up down here. Again, similar to other pages, there's always going to be an edit, view, or delete button. If you have to make any changes, you can do that within here, or you could just delete the line and start over. So we're going to save and close that. Again, that is the vehicle cost and usage page. And then we're going to save and next, which will bring us to the general administrative cost page, which I will hand back to my colleague, Colleen.
Thank you, Matt. All right, and mine should be back up. Can we see this? Good. Okay, so I will bring us home here. So we have the next page of the report, general and administrative costs. Again, the blue section up top here describes the page. You have the instruction manual page link, as well as a notes button. This page is going to be for all other costs not already reported, and it needs to be specific to administrative related costs. So just to reiterate, residential programs should not be including mortgage, lease, or rent costs for their homes where their program participants reside. However, if you have a separate building, for example, that you lease and it's solely being used for your administrative staff, then you could, in this instance, report that cost. So in my example here, I'm going to put $10,000 under mortgage, lease, and rent costs. And this is specifically for our administrative staff to work out of. So I'm going to put it under 100% of the time DWRS Services Administration. I've pre-filled some information in here. You can see there's a lot of different things that you can put in here. So maybe you have a contracted accountant service. That's $1,000 throughout the year. You can put this in here. Maybe, well, actually everyone should put their license fee in here. That's a great great cost to report, excuse me. So your license fee, office supplies, put those in there. That is a cost to your business. Software is a cost to your business. Telecommunications, all of those things, we want to know these costs because it does impact how you're providing services and the money that you have available. So add those costs in here, add in your methodology for allocating. So again, we looked at our saved receipts to come up with these numbers. And we do want exact numbers, like Matt was saying. Rounded numbers like this are a little suspicious. So please do your best to have exact figures in the system. If you round to the nearest dollar, that's fine, but rounding to the nearest hundredth dollar, not so good. So okay, so that is the general and administrative page. I'm going to move to the next, and this is our direct care worker questionnaire. So with this page, you're going to be entering how many full-time and part-time staff that you have. Everyone should have at least one staff. If you're a family provider, you're probably that one staff. Larger organizations are going to obviously have more. So please fill in this information accordingly. And as you put in numbers here, you will see things populate below, additional questions that you'll need to answer. So if I were to put 0 here, I get no further questions. If I put a number here, I will get further questions down here. Just for the sake of the demonstration, I'm going to put 0 and just show you on one column here. So let's say I have 4 full-time staff. Just go through and answer the questions. Do you have holiday pay? Yes or no? Going to put yes. If so, are direct care workers eligible? Yes, they are. What is a waiting period? You have options listed here. Let's say there is no waiting period. And the minimum number of hours per week a direct care worker must work to be eligible for holiday pay. Let's say this is only for, again, my full-time employees, so 32 hours per week. 100% of my employees are eligible for this, and the average number of holiday days, again, days, not hours, I say 7 days here for the example. And now just do the same thing for the following questions. So we're going to put in here the same information, or if it's different per category that you're working out of. So does your company offer health insurance benefits? Yes or no? Maybe in this one you do have a waiting period, and employees need to be employed 30 days before they're eligible for health insurance benefits. Maybe not all of your employees participate in your health insurance plan. Do you have other benefits? So this could be tuition reimbursement. It could be any other specific other type of additional benefits that you offer that are unique to your business. Add those in here. I'm going to put no here just to keep things moving along. And then training. We want to know how many hours of non-mandated training your first year direct care employees receive. So maybe in this situation, everyone gets an additional 10 hours of training. How many hours of non-mandated training do direct care workers receive after their first year employment? Maybe everyone gets those 10 hours. Does your agency contribute toward non-wage cost of attending non-mandatory trainings? We're going to say yes in this example. And do we provide, it's pointed out here, tuition reimbursement? Let's say no in this example, keep things moving along. And I'm going to hit save and next, and then we will be on to the last page of the report here, which is the summary. So when you get to the summary page, you will see calculate and print. This is your time to print your report for your records. If you would like to have a copy of this, print it now, because once you submit it, you are not able to go back into the report to edit anything, including hitting this print button. So do that now. We also have this calculate button listed. Everyone does need to hit this button, calculate. It's going to take all of the information that you've entered in the system, all of those past 10 pages. It's going to summarize everything and put it nice and neatly into the summary page. You will see this purple progress bar. It might take a few minutes because it's a lot of information for the system. Once it gets to the end here, you will see all of the numbers populated down here. So scroll through this, make sure things are looking accurate. Once you get all the way, I'm just going to scroll through all of this to the bottom here, you're going to see grand total costs. And that's going to list everything out here for you as the grand totals. So I'm going to say everything looks nice. I'm going to hit save and next move on to the last page here, which is the submission page. Now, like I said at the beginning of the demonstration here, only authorized agents can submit and finalize a report. Again, the authorized agent user account starts with admin dot. So that is the report you need to be logged into to be able to get to this page and submit the report. The authorized agent should double check everything that's been entered, make sure everything is accurate. Click this submit checkbox that says, I think this, report is complete to the best of my knowledge, true and accurate. And then go ahead and hit the submit button. And then your report is submitted.
And with that, we've concluded our demonstration of the system, as well as kind of our intro PowerPoint for corporate, residential, and unit-based providers. I'll just give one quick note, which is that you can print out a copy of the cost report summary page. We do get some questions about that, and it's helpful for people to have on their record, in their records, just that copy. So don't forget that. It should be pretty visible when you go through it. Okay, I again apologize that we had some technical difficulties as we went through this demonstration today. I'm glad we got them fixed. We're going to have a recording of this posted online onto the training archive at some point soon. And we'll also have a copy of the PowerPoint that I shared at the beginning. We'll include a note that we eventually overcame those technical difficulties and that you can kind of skip around if you wanted to. In the meantime, I'm going to hold some space now. If you have any final questions that you want to share with us, you can put them into the Q&A function. We'll answer them here quick. I'll give you all like a moment to do that. Other than that, while I'm waiting for any kind of final questions to come in, I'd just like to remind you all that the deadline for submitting your cost reports is the end of the month on the 31st. We'll notify providers who haven't submitted their cost reports in time on September 1st via an automated message to your authorized agent. And then you'll be reminded monthly until December 1st if you have not submitted your cost report. Again, we'll have other trainings in the archive in case you want to reference anything else. We have a full manual set up and a website with a bunch of resources on it, both of which you can find very easily by Googling DWRS Cost Reporting. Let's see, what other information can I share with you? I believe I mentioned this earlier that there are audits and checks of incoming cost reports. if there is a potential issue with your cost report, for example, some of the big offenders are not reporting benefits and payroll taxes, or, for example, putting in an employee's hourly wage as opposed to like their yearly earnings. If we find things like that, we may reach out to you and unsubmit your report, but work with you to fix those things that seem invalid in terms of entering data. So again, it's not something to worry about. If we do have potential concerns about your report, we work with you to fix it and have you resubmit. We've reached out to a few folks now, and nearly all of them have resubmitted their cost reports with no issue or no major issue. With that, it doesn't seem like we have any other questions coming into the Q&A. So with that, we'll just end this seminar. Thank you so much for attending, and we will update you with the resources that we have after this ends sometime soon. Thank you, and have a great rest of your Tuesday, and reach out to us if you have any other questions. For one last time, I'm going to put in our email. Okay, I can't really send it. Ken wrote thank you, so I'm going to write an email to Ken's write a message to Ken's thank you saying our email address. So that is our email address. If you have any questions or concerns, anything at all, please reach out to us and we'll get back to you pretty quick. Thank you very much and have a great rest of your day, everyone.